My boyfriend and his family humiliated me in a language I couldn't even understand. Imagine discovering that the man you loved, the one sleeping in your bed, was secretly calling you a free housekeeper to his entire family, all while laughing about how easy to manipulate you were. Yeah, that's my life right now. And trust me, it only gets crazier from there. I'm still reeling from the last 48 hours, trying to process everything. It all started about 8 months ago when I met Tiago at an international street food festival. I was with my roommate, Bridget, and he was working at a pastry stand. He had this incredible charm, an accent that made him even cuter, and I was hooked instantly. He literally slipped me an extra pastry with his number on a napkin, straight out of a movie. We started dating, and at first, it was pure magic. He was so attentive, sweet, always complimenting me, and eager to spend time together. He'd share stories about his culture, and I found his accent incredibly attractive. After just a month, he started staying over more and more. My one-bedroom apartment is my pride and joy. I've been completely independent since I was 20, working in office admin. I was always upfront with him, this isn't my forever job, I have bigger plans, I don't come from money, I earn everything I have. But somehow, within a couple of months, Tiago was basically living with me full-time. It happened so gradually I didn't even question it. I was happy, I thought we were building something real. The first major red flag, the one I completely ignored, was that he never offered to contribute to rent or utilities. When I finally brought it up around the 3-month mark, he just said, I still have no stable income. You know how hard it is with a visa. And I understood. I really did. Immigration is complex, and I wanted to be supportive. But then, the comments started. At first, they were subtle, you swear a lot. Women from my country don't talk like that. Or, the way you dress is very American. Even, you're so loud when you laugh. I dismissed them as cultural differences. But they intensified, becoming more frequent, more critical. You wouldn't survive back home. Women there know when to be quiet. He'd make faces when I spoke during dinner with his friends. Meanwhile, our financial situation was a joke. He'd pick up an occasional food delivery gig, but mostly he just sat at my desk, playing games on my laptop while I was at work. I'd come home exhausted after a 9-hour day, and he'd be there, asking what was for dinner. And somehow, I just made dinner. Looking back, I can't believe I let it get so unbalanced. About a week ago, I finally snapped. I'm getting kind of tired of carrying all the expenses myself, I said. You guys, his reaction was wild. He immediately got defensive, so, you just don't trust me? I thought we were building something together, and you're counting pennies like a shopkeeper. I felt so incredibly guilty after that, like I was the bad guy for even bringing it up. He gave me the silent treatment for 2 days, and I actually apologized to him. Seriously, what was wrong with me? Fast forward to this past weekend. Tiago told me his parents were in town and wanted to have them over for dinner. I was genuinely excited to meet them, but then he started giving me instructions. Please don't joke too loudly. Don't be rude. Be polite and respectful. My mother is very traditional. I spent the entire day cleaning my apartment, cooking 3 different dishes, including one from his country that took forever to figure out, stressing about making a good impression. By the time they arrived at 7 p.m., I was exhausted but plastered on my best smile. His parents were polite, that's the kindest word I can use. They smiled and nodded, but something felt off from the moment they walked in. Almost immediately, they started speaking to Tiago in their language. Not just for a quick exchange, but for like 80% of the evening. Even when sitting across from me at the dinner table I had spent hours preparing. I tried to stay positive, smiling and nodding along like an idiot, understanding absolutely nothing. Tiago would occasionally translate, but it was always vague. Oh, they're just talking about our cousin's new baby, or they're discussing some family business. Halfway through dinner, I realized I'd forgotten cream and lemons for dessert. I told Tiago I needed to run to the corner store, I'd be right back. They all nodded and continued their conversation as I grabbed my keys and left. When I returned about 15 minutes later, they seemed to switch topics abruptly. The rest of the evening continued like that, me trying too hard, them speaking their language, Tiago acting weirdly different around his parents. They left around 11 p.m., and I was so drained, I just collapsed into bed. The next morning, making coffee, I suddenly remembered something. A year and a half ago, after a break-in, I installed 2 small security cameras, one in the living room, one in the kitchen. They're not hidden, just regular cameras on shelves. I don't check them often, but standing there, it hit me, I could hear what they were saying while I was at the store. At first, I felt weird, like it was an invasion of privacy. But then I thought, 1, it's my apartment. 2, the cameras aren't hidden. And 3, they were literally sitting in my home talking about something while I wasn't there. So, I pulled up the security app. I found the footage from around 8:30 p.m. last night. At first, it was more of the same, them talking, eating my food in my apartment. But about 2 minutes after I left, the conversation shifted. Their body language, their tone, something had changed. I couldn't understand the words, but I felt the mood shift through the screen. His mother was animated, gesturing toward the kitchen where I'd been cooking all day. His father nodded, occasionally laughing. And Tiago. Tiago was smiling and nodding along with whatever they were saying. I didn't know what to do with the footage, since I couldn't understand them. But then I remembered an online transcription and translation service I'd used for work. I downloaded the clip and uploaded it. About an hour later, I had a transcript in English. And you guys, I wish I had never translated it. His mother had said, she's not very pretty, but she cleans up after you well. She laughed and added, well, she knows her place at least. His father replied, she's like a free housekeeper. Smart choice, son. And Tiago, the man I'd been supporting, cooking for, cleaning up after for months. He laughed and said, she's useful. The apartment is always clean. Food is always ready. American girls are so easy to manipulate. Just make them feel bad about asking for anything, and they'll give you everything. There was more. Much worse. But I can't even type it out without feeling physically sick all over again. They mocked my appearance, my job, my apartment, even the food I had spent all day preparing. All while eating at my table, in my home. The most painful part? Throughout their entire conversation, there wasn't a single moment where Tiago defended me. Not once did he say, don't talk about her like that, or, I actually care about her. Instead, he participated. He laughed. I sat there, staring at my phone screen for what felt like hours. My mind kept replaying all those little critical comments he'd made over the months. All the times he'd made me feel like I wasn't good enough, or didn't measure up to the women from his culture. It all made sickening sense now. He never respected me. I was just convenient. He was still asleep in my bed as I processed this. He didn't know that I knew. I was sitting in my kitchen, the very kitchen where his family laughed at me, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew I needed to end this. I knew I needed to get him out of my apartment. But part of me just wanted to confront him, to see his face when he realized I understood every awful word. That was yesterday morning. I felt so unbelievably stupid, realizing I had spent 8 months being someone's free housekeeper while thinking I was in a relationship. Then, he woke up. What are you doing? He asked. Just checking emails, I replied, my voice strangely calm. He kissed the top of my head and went into the shower. That was my cue. I started packing his things while he was in there. I just couldn't have him in my home another night. First, thank you to everyone who reached out. I read every single comment, hiding in my bathroom yesterday morning. So, a lot has happened in the last 36 hours. I'm typing this from my friend Bridget's couch at 2 a.m. because I still can't sleep. When the shower turned off, I put my phone down and went straight to the bedroom. I pulled out 2 black garbage bags and just started shoving his stuff in. No neat folding, just clothes, shoes, his stupid gaming headset, everything, into those bags. There wasn't even that much, he came into my life with practically nothing. I found the little box where I kept photos of us, from the food festival, a beach day. I ripped them all in half and threw them in with his clothes. I was emptying his drawer when he walked in, a towel around his waist. He froze, seeing the bags, the clothes scattered, and the look on my face. At first, he was confused, asking what I was doing, if something was wrong. His voice had this nervous edge I'd never heard before. When I didn't answer, he reached for my arm, and I recoiled so fast I knocked over my nightstand lamp. It didn't break, but the shade dented. That's when I told him. I said I knew exactly what he and his parents said about me while I was at the store. I told him I had the security camera footage, that I'd had it translated, and that I knew he called me his personal housekeeper. You guys, the way his face changed. First, a split second of shock, then instant denial. He tried to say I'd misunderstood, that it was cultural context, that they were just joking. When he realized I wasn't buying it, he switched tactics completely. He got furious, yelling about how I was spying on him, how I'd invaded his privacy by recording a private conversation with his parents. In my own home. With cameras that had been visibly mounted on the wall since before I even met him. I remained eerily calm, just continuing to pack his stuff. That seemed to make him even angrier. He grabbed my wrist hard, pulling me away from the bags, screaming that I was crazy, overreacting, and that, this is why women from his country were better, they didn't act hysterical over nothing. That's when my calm shattered. I yanked my arm back so hard his nails scraped my skin. I shoved him away and told him to get out. He had 20 minutes to get dressed, take his stuff, and leave, or I was calling the police. He called me a crazy and said I'd be nothing without him. Then came the part that actually made me laugh. He said I was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing? A man who mocked me to his parents, contributed nothing, treated me like a servant. I told him that was rich coming from someone who'd been living off me for months. I reminded him that everything he'd been enjoying was mine. My apartment, my food, my Netflix, my everything. I told him he was a parasite, not a boyfriend. That hit a nerve. He went beet red, and for a second, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he grabbed the bags I'd packed, stormed into the bathroom, and came out a few minutes later fully dressed, but still seething. As he was leaving, he kept trying to have the last word, saying I'd regret this, that I'd call him crying in a few days, begging him to come back. He said no one else would put up with me. I just opened the door wider and pointed him out. The last thing he did before leaving was knock over the little table by the door, sending my keys and mail flying. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard my neighbor across the hall opened theirs to check. After he left, I just sat on my living room floor for an hour. My wrist had red marks, already starting to bruise. That's when it truly hit me how bad things had gotten, how I'd let someone treat me that way for months. I cried for a while, not even sad tears, more like relief mixed with pure anger. Then I kicked into practical mode. I texted Bridget, gave her a quick rundown. She immediately offered to come over, but I needed some time alone first. I gathered anything he might have left behind, his spare phone charger, a couple of books, a jacket, and put them in another bag by the door. Then I called a locksmith. It cost me $275 for an emergency Sunday service call, but by 6 p.m., I had new locks on my door. Worth every single penny. Around 8 p.m., the text started. You're making a big mistake. I didn't respond. I left my charger and some other things. I need to come get them. Then, are you seriously ignoring me? After everything I've done for you? Everything he's done for me? I almost threw my phone across the room. By 10 p.m., the tone shifted. I'm sorry if you misunderstood what we were saying. It's a cultural thing. You wouldn't understand. Then, can we please just talk about this? You're overreacting. Shortly after, Bridget arrived with wine and takeout. She sat with me while I showed her the video and the translation. She was livid. I had to talk her down from going to find Tiago herself. She stayed until midnight, helping me delete photos of him and untag myself from posts. This morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and about 30 texts from Tiago. They ranged from angry, "You'll regret this," to apologetic, "I'm sorry, please let's talk," to manipulative, "I have nowhere to go. You know my situation." I blocked his number. Then remembered Instagram and WhatsApp, so I blocked him there too. Then Facebook. Then even LinkedIn, just to be safe. I called in sick to work, my wrist was sore, and honestly, I couldn't face people yet. My boss was understanding, just told me to take the day. Around noon, a knock at my door. I checked the peephole, surprise, it was Tiago. I didn't answer. He kept knocking, then started calling my name through the door. I stayed completely silent, sitting on my couch, watching him through the peephole like some weird, reversed stalker situation. After about 10 minutes, he left. I texted Bridget again, and she insisted I come stay with her for a few days, just to be safe. That's where I am now. I keep thinking about all the little red flags I ignored. The finances, the criticism of my personality, the guilt trips, never inviting me to hang with his friends without him, belittling my career goals. Each one seems so blindingly obvious now, but I missed them all because I don't even know. I guess I was just so caught up in the idea of this charming, exotic boyfriend that I didn't want to see the reality. Oh, and one more thing. His cousin, the one he's actually close with, messaged me on Instagram this afternoon. Apparently, Tiago told his entire family that I threw him out because I was mentally unstable and jealous of his culture. His cousin didn't buy it. I sent her the translated transcript. She was horrified and apologized for her family's behavior. At least one decent person in that crowd. So that's where I am right now. Sleeping on a friend's couch, having blocked my boyfriend of 8 months on every platform, and trying to figure out what happens next. I've never had a relationship end this dramatically. Part of me is scared he'll keep trying to contact me or show up at my work. He knows where I work. Another part is just sad, not because I miss him, but because I feel so stupid for not seeing this sooner. Bridget thinks I should file a police report about him grabbing my wrist, just to have it on record in case things escalate. Maybe she's right to be cautious. After 3 nights on Bridget's couch, I was finally starting to feel a little more stable. The bruises on my wrist had faded to this gross yellowish color but didn't hurt anymore. I hadn't heard from Tiago since blocking him everywhere, and I was actually starting to believe the worst was behind me. I even went back to work on Wednesday, and my coworkers were incredibly supportive. Yesterday morning, Saturday, I woke up early and decided it was time to go back to my own apartment. Bridget offered to come with me, but I told her I'd be fine. I stopped for coffee on the way home, checking my surroundings the whole time like some paranoid spy movie character. When I got back, everything was exactly how I'd left it. I spent the morning deep cleaning, changing sheets, scrubbing the bathroom, rearranging furniture, basically trying to reclaim my space and get rid of any reminders of Tiago. I even burned some sage my sister gave me. Yeah, I know it's cliché, but it honestly made me feel better. Around noon, I figured I should check in with my parents. We usually talk on weekends, and I hadn't told them about the breakup yet. They live about 40 minutes outside the city. I thought about calling, but decided seeing them in person might be better. I texted my mom to ask if I could come over for dinner, and she replied with a simple, "Yes, we need to talk." That was weird. My mom is the queen of emojis and exclamation points. A serious, "we need to talk" message is absolutely not her style. I tried calling, but she didn't pick up, which made me even more anxious. I arrived at their house around 4 p.m. As soon as I walked in, I could tell something was off. My mom was sitting stiffly at the kitchen table, not getting up to hug me. My dad stood by the counter, back to me, making coffee. The tension in the room was so thick, I almost turned around and left. I asked what was going on, and my mom just looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. She asked if I was doing okay mentally these days. I was completely confused until she said that Tiago had come to see them yesterday. You guys, he went to my parents' house. Apparently, he showed up unannounced Friday morning, looking polished and put together. He apologized for coming without warning, but claimed he was worried about me. He told them I'd been acting erratically, paranoid, secretly recording him. He said I had thrown him out in a fit of rage, had physically attacked him, and he was concerned about my mental health. He even showed them a scratch on his face, one I definitely didn't give him, and implied I had done it during our fight. He painted this whole picture of me as an unstable girlfriend who turned violent when he tried to help me. My mom watched me carefully as she told me all this, clearly trying to gauge my reaction. She knows me better than that, but she was concerned enough not to dismiss it entirely. I sat down at the table, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I tried to stay calm as I explained what actually happened, the dinner with his parents, the security footage that had been there since before I met him, what I heard them saying, and how he grabbed my wrist. My mom still looked skeptical, not because she didn't believe me, but because the whole situation just seemed so bizarre. She kept asking if I was sure I hadn't misunderstood the translation, if there might be some cultural misunderstanding. That's when I pulled out my phone. I still had the video clip saved, along with screenshots of the translation. I handed my phone to my mom and watched her face change as she read through it. By the time she finished, she looked absolutely furious. Not at me, but at Tiago. My dad, who had been quietly listening, finally came over to look at my phone too. He's usually pretty chill, but as he read the translation, his face got redder and redder. When he saw the part where Tiago's father called me a free housekeeper, and Tiago laughed about it, my dad actually swore, something he rarely does. The atmosphere in the kitchen completely shifted. My mom got up and hugged me, apologizing for doubting me even for a second. She said she should have known better than to listen to that manipulative little weasel, her exact words, which actually made me laugh despite everything. My dad was quiet in a way that was more scary than if he'd been yelling. He just asked what time Tiago usually finished work and where exactly he delivered food. I told him, not really thinking much of it. Then we tried to have a normal dinner, but my dad kept checking his watch, distracted. Around 7 p.m., he suddenly stood up, grabbed his keys, and said he needed to go out for a bit. My mom tried to ask where, but he just said he'd be back soon and left. My mom and I looked at each other, both realizing at the same time what he was probably doing. I immediately tried calling my dad, but he didn't pick up. I started freaking out, imagining him confronting Tiago and things getting out of hand. My mom was worried, too, but kept saying that my dad wasn't stupid, he wouldn't do anything that would get him in trouble. We sat there for 2 agonizing hours, repeatedly trying to call him, getting more anxious by the minute. Finally, around 9:30 p.m., we heard his car pull up. He walked in looking completely normal, like he'd just gone for groceries. When we both started demanding to know where he'd been, he calmly sat down and said he'd gone to find Tiago at the delivery place I mentioned. He waited until Tiago came out after his shift and then approached him. According to my dad, he kept his cool, though I'm not entirely sure I believe that. He told Tiago he knew everything, that he'd seen the video, read the translations, and knew about him grabbing my wrist. He told him in no uncertain terms to stay away from me and my family. My dad said Tiago tried to defend himself at first, insisting there was a misunderstanding. But when my dad mentioned the specific things that were said on the video, Tiago's face apparently went white. My dad told him, "You were sitting at our table, eating our food, and then you called my daughter a maid who was only good for cleaning up after you. If you ever speak about her that way again, or spread any more lies about her, you'll regret it." According to my dad, Tiago didn't say another word. He just stood there, looking shocked, as my dad walked away. Part of me wishes I could have seen his face in that moment. When my dad finished telling us what happened, I felt this weird mix of emotions. Relief that someone had stood up for me so fiercely, embarrassment that my parents had to get involved in my relationship drama at 26, and lingering anxiety about how Tiago might react. I ended up staying the night at my parents' house, mostly because it was late and I was emotionally drained. This morning at breakfast, my mom suggested I might want to file for a restraining order, especially given Tiago's pattern of escalation, first showing up at my apartment, then going to my parents behind my back. I'm seriously considering it, but the process seems complicated. Oh, and I got a text from Tiago's cousin again. Apparently, Tiago called his mother after my dad confronted him, and she's furious. Not at my dad or me, but at Tiago for embarrassing the family. His cousin also mentioned that Tiago has been crashing on different friends' couches since I kicked him out, and most of them are getting tired of him. He lost his food delivery gig for showing up late, and he's quickly running out of options. I'm going back to my apartment today. Bridget offered to stay with me for a few days if I'm nervous, but I think I'll be okay. I've let my building manager know about the situation, just in case. Also, a random side note, but I've started therapy. Had my first session yesterday morning. My therapist seems great, and she's helping me understand how I ended up in this situation to begin with. Turns out I have some work to do on recognizing red flags earlier and setting better boundaries. I'll update again if anything significant happens, but hopefully, this is the beginning of the end of this whole nightmare. It's been almost 2 weeks since my last update, and I wasn't planning to post again. I really hoped the whole Tiago saga was finally over. Turns out I was wrong. And yesterday, things reached a whole new level of crazy that I still can't fully process. After my dad confronted Tiago, things were actually pretty quiet for about 10 days. I moved back to my apartment, started getting into a routine again, and was feeling more like myself. I even went on a little shopping spree, buying some new throw pillows and plants to reclaim my space. Small things, but they helped erase the feeling of him being there. My therapist suggested I keep a journal of my feelings, which sounded super cheesy at first, but it's actually been helping. Writing things down makes them feel less overwhelming. I've had 2 more sessions, unpacking why I let so many red flags slide for so long. Turns out I have some stuff to work through about my self-worth. Who knew? Work has been a welcome distraction. My coworkers don't know all the details, but they know I went through a bad breakup, and everyone's been really supportive. Yesterday started like any regular Tuesday. I woke up, did my skincare routine, grabbed coffee, and headed to the office. The morning was slammed with back-to-back meetings, and I barely had time to check my phone until lunch. When I finally did, around 1 p.m., I had 3 missed calls from an unknown number and a voicemail. I stepped into the break room to listen, and as soon as I heard the voice, my stomach dropped. It was Tiago, sounding not right. His words were slightly slurred, and he kept switching between English and his native language. From what I could understand, he was saying he needed to talk to me, that everything was falling apart, and that I owed him a conversation. I immediately deleted the voicemail and blocked the number, then texted Bridget to let her know he'd found a way to contact me again. She suggested I tell my office security as a precaution, which seemed like overkill at the time, but I decided to stop by the front desk anyway. Our building has 2 security guards, Ron, an older guy who's been there forever, and Alexis, a younger woman who started a few months ago. I caught them between shifts and briefly explained that my ex might try to contact me at work and that I didn't want to see him. They were super understanding and said they'd keep an eye out, which made me feel a bit better. I went back to my desk and tried to focus, but I kept checking the time, glancing toward the elevator. By 4 p.m., I had convinced myself I was being paranoid. I mean, he'd left a weird voicemail, but that didn't mean he was actually going to show up, right? Around 4:30 p.m., I was in a small meeting with my team in one of the glass-walled conference rooms near the front of the office. We were discussing an upcoming project when I saw movement by the reception area. I glanced up, and there he was, Tiago, talking animatedly to Alexis at the front desk. My heart seized. I quickly told my team I needed to step out and texted Ron, who I knew was in the break room, to come to reception ASAP. I ducked behind a column, trying to decide what to do. While I was still deciding, I heard his voice get louder. He was trying to move past Alexis, saying he just needed to talk to me for 5 minutes, that I was being childish by ignoring him. That's when Ron appeared, and thank God he did. Ron's a tall, broad-shouldered guy who used to be in the military, and he immediately positioned himself in front of Tiago, who took a step back. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw Ron pointing toward the door, his stance making it clear this wasn't a negotiation. For a second, I thought Tiago might actually leave. He took a few steps back, still arguing, but less forcefully. Then, because the universe apparently decided I hadn't been through enough drama yet, Marcus, a coworker, chose that exact moment to walk by me and ask if everything was okay. Tiago's head snapped in our direction. And when he saw me standing there with another guy, his whole demeanor changed. His face got this scary, intense look, and he suddenly shoved past Ron, heading straight for us. Ron caught up to him in seconds, grabbing his arm. But Tiago was like a completely different person from the charming guy I met at the food festival. He was yelling now, loud enough for the entire office to hear, about how I'd ruined his life, how I'd turned everyone against him, how I was already moving on with this guy, meaning Marcus, who looked completely bewildered. People were coming out of meeting rooms, standing up from their desks to see what was happening. I was frozen in place, mortified and scared all at once. Marcus stepped slightly in front of me, which was sweet, but it just made Tiago even angrier. Tiago was still trying to get to me, with Ron blocking his way, when he started saying the most horrible things. He called me a manipulative who'd tricked him, said I'd been secretly recording him to ruin my life, that I'd attacked him and thrown him out on the street. Then he switched tactics completely, his voice breaking as he said he loved me, that he needed me, that he had nowhere to go. He started crying, actual tears streaming down his face, begging me to just talk to him, to give him another chance. Alexis had called building security, and 2 more guards showed up just as Tiago made one final lunge toward me, breaking free from Ron momentarily. Marcus instinctively put his arm out to stop him, and Tiago actually took a swing at him, missing by inches. The security guards grabbed him immediately, one on each arm, and started physically removing him from the building while he continued yelling, alternating between insults and pleas. As they dragged him toward the elevator, he looked over his shoulder at me one last time and shouted that I'd regret this, that this wasn't over. Then my boss appeared beside me and quietly suggested I take the rest of the day off. She walked me to my desk, waited while I gathered my things, and then had Ron escort me to my car, just to be safe. The whole time, I felt like I was moving through a fog, like this couldn't possibly be my actual life. I called Bridget from the parking garage, shaking so much I could barely hold my phone. She met me at my apartment 30 minutes later with takeout. I told her everything while we sat on my couch, and she stayed over again last night, sleeping in my bedroom while I took the couch because I was too wired to sleep anyway. This morning, I woke up to a text from my boss saying to take today off too, and that HR wanted to meet with me tomorrow to discuss implementing additional security measures. Marcus also texted to check if I was okay, which was really decent of him, considering he almost got punched by my crazy ex. I finally decided to call the police and file a report, something I probably should have done when Tiago first grabbed my wrist. The officer who took my statement was understanding. She said that while his behavior definitely warranted concern, they couldn't arrest him just for showing up at my workplace and making a scene. But she did help me start the process for a restraining order, which I'm following through with today. I also got another message from Tiago's cousin. Apparently, after the scene at my office, Tiago went on some kind of bender, posting a bunch of cryptic, angry stuff on his Instagram stories about betrayal and revenge. He blocked me, but mutual friends screenshotted everything. His cousin is genuinely worried about his mental state and apologized again for what her family did. She also said his parents have finally intervened. They booked him a one-way ticket back to their country that leaves tomorrow. They've apparently told him he has no choice, they're cutting him off completely if he doesn't come home. His cousin thinks he'll actually go because he's running out of friends to crash with and has no money left. I've triple-checked that my doors and windows are locked, and Bridget is staying another night just to be safe. So, that's where things stand right now. I'm still processing everything, still a little on edge, but also feeling more certain than ever that I made the right choice in ending things. If his cousin confirms he actually gets on that plane tomorrow, I'll finally be able to breathe easier. This whole nightmare has taught me so much about listening to my gut, recognizing those sneaky red flags, and standing up for myself. It's been brutal, but I'm coming out of it stronger, ready to build a life where I'm truly valued.